So before we even talk about that, let's just do a quick review. We learned that there are 5 kinds of Jews, let's call it. The Gemara divides the Jews into 5 kinds. There's Tzadik ve-tovlo, righteous and good to him. Tzadik vera, righteous and bad to him. Rasha ve-tovlo, wicked that's good to him. Rasha vera, wicked that's bad to him. And a Beinani. And last week we discussed the 2 tzadikim. Tzadik ve-tovlo, a complete tzadik and an incomplete tzadik. And just to refresh what we said a little bit from last week, we said that both the tzaddik gamor, the complete tzaddik and the incomplete tzaddik, never had a bad thought in their life. I'm not talking about never did a sin, that's obvious. They both love God. They both constantly do what God says to do. And they both want to constantly do what God tells them. So then we say, so what's the difference between them? Why do we call one an incomplete tzaddik and the other one we call a complete tzaddik? And we started discussing that the complete tzaddik loves God to the utmost extent, completely. And the incomplete tzaddik doesn't love God 100%. He has something lacking. Why? Because he has some desire for physicality. So if he has a desire for physicality, why do we call him a tzaddik? Because we gave the explanation that we eat tuna. When I give you a can of tuna, I ask you, what are you eating? So you tell me, I'm eating tuna. And then we said, yeah, but everybody knows that the FDA says that in this tuna, there's a little bit of rat droppings. A little bit. There's, acceptable amount of rat droppings in every can of tuna. But when you say that I'm eating, you don't say I'm eating tuna with rat droppings, because it's completely nullified. It doesn't affect the tuna to any manner. So is the incomplete tzaddik. Not that he knows that there's rat droppings in his neshama. He's not even aware of it. It's completely nullified within the tumah. It has absolutely no effect on him. But it has something there. That's where we were last week. Yes?
I heard the talk from last week on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And did you say that the righteous man with no incompleteness has some sort of a defect, almost you could say, like his birth defect?
Both of them. They don't have evil inclination. Evil inclination doesn't work within them. They never, imagine, they never desired a woman. I'm not talking about somebody else's woman, their own wife. They never desired. So why would they be with the wife? It's a commandment.
Is this one of the reasons why there's so few of them to be found?
Excellent, excellent. This is why God put them in each generation. Because they're not going to come on their own. Usually these guys are born this way. They're not, you cannot make yourself one. Usually. Okay. That's where we were last time.
And there are people defective in the opposite way too, where they don't have a goodly, they don't have any.
We will discuss that on the next. I don't want to go there, but we will discuss what you're saying in the next chapter, and we see if you're right or not. Yeah, maybe we're right, maybe you're not. We'll see that later on. So we are on page 43. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines from the bottom. There's a full stop next to the end of the line. There's a full stop next to the end of the line. It starts with it. The line ends with the word vehine, and behold. Okay, let's start with them. So we're talking about the incomplete tzaddik, not the complete tzaddik. Remember the mashal, the allegory, with he has some evil in him, but it's completely nullified. It never affects him. It's tuna. It's not tuna with doo-doo. It's just tuna. When you eat a can of tuna, you don't say, I eat tuna and doo-doo. This is tuna. Because the doo-doo is completely nullified within the tuna. It's like it's not there. We all know it is there, because the FDA says it is there. But it's for amount, it's completely nullified. You don't have to worry about it. Same thing with the tzaddik, that incomplete tzaddik. So vehine, and behold, madrega zo, the incomplete tzaddik's level, מתחלקת לרבבות מדרגות. That divides into thousands and tens of thousands of levels. It's not just one incomplete tzaddik. A complete tzaddik, there's only one thing, is complete. Incomplete tzaddik, they're different. Not everybody is the same. They're all different levels, tens of thousands of levels. בעניין בחינת מיעוט הרע. What are they different? In how much little bit of evil there's still in them, or desire for physicality there's still in them. They have a little bit of desire for physicality, הנשאר, that is remaining, מאחת מארבע יסודות הרעים, that is remaining from one of the four elements which are bad. And we discussed some of the elements. For example, from the element of fire, some of them might be haughty. A little bit. Does it affect him? Does he ever have a thought he's better than you? Never. But he has a little bit of haughtiness. It's completely nullified within his good. Yes, some of them might get angry. Some of them might be lazy. Does he ever think not to do God's thing? Never. But he has a little bit of laziness in him. ובעניין ביטולו, and how much does this laziness or does this haughtiness or whatever wickedness he has in him, how much it is nullified במיעוטו? How much is it nullified? ב-60 על דרך משל. In some tzaddikim, it's nullified in 60. 1 in 60 is considered kosher. Or ב-1000. In some tzaddikim, it's 1 part in 1,000. Or ורבבה. In some tzaddikim, it's only 1 part in 10,000. But there is 1 part. Does it affect his daily life? Never. וכיוצא על דרך משל. והן, and who are these guys? הם בחינת צדקים הרבים שבכל הדורות. They are the righteous people who we find in all the generation. כדאית בגמרא, just like the Gemara tells us, that מניסר אלפי צדיקים, that there are 18,000 types of righteous people, 18,000 types, קיימי קמי הקדוש ברוך הוא, are alive in front of God. אך על מעלת צדיק גמור, but when you're talking about somebody who's a complete tzaddik, who's absolutely righteous, הוא שאמר רשב"י, this is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, on this kind of tzaddik, we're going to give this tzaddik now a new name. Until now, we had the name complete tzaddik, tzaddik gamur, and tzaddik ve-tovlo, and righteous and good in him, only good in him. Unlike the righteous and he's got a little bit of bad, which is because he's incomplete. Yeah? We're going to give him a third name now. And that third name is going to teach us a lot. Amar Rashbi said, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said about the complete tzaddik. Obviously, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was a complete tzaddik. So he's talking about to people, and he says, Ra'iti bnei aliyah. He says, I saw sons of elevation, sons of arising, sons of elevation, that's what he calls them, bnei aliyah. Vehem muatim. It says it's not every righteous person is a ben aliyah. There are, throughout generations, very few. That's what the Rashbi says. There are very few of those guys. שלכן נקראים בני עלייה, and this is why they are called bnei aliyah. Now comes your question. What's really the difference between them and the incomplete tzaddik? Because they are doing something that an incomplete tzaddik is not able to do. What are they able to do? שמהפכים הרע, they can take a desire which is bad, ומעלים אותה לקדושה, and bring it up to make them holy. Let's give an example. Let's talk about relationship between men and women, because we can all relate. Yeah? Both a complete tzaddik and an incomplete tzaddik obviously will only have a desire for their own wives. And the truth is they're only doing it because God said so, not because they really have a desire. The complete tzaddik can elevate the desire to such an extent he makes it holy, the desire for women. The incomplete tzaddik is not capable to make it completely holy. Why? Because physically, 1,000th or one part of 10,000th or one part of 60, he has that desire. Now, it's 59 parts he's doing it for God, and one part is for him. He's not even aware. But because there is some element that he's doing it for himself unconsciously, it's unconsciously, he's not even aware of that, he's not able to completely elevate it. While the complete tzaddik can completely elevate it, 100%. Kedeita bezohar. Where do we see this? We see it in the Zohar. Behakdama, in the introduction to the Zohar, there's a story. כשרצה רבי חייא לעלות להיכל רבי שמעון בן יוחאי. Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shimon went up to heaven, and he wanted to learn in the same yeshiva of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai in heaven, up there in the higher worlds. Shamakala nafik ve'amar. So he heard a voice come out, and that voice said, Man manchon, only those of you, dichashocha mehapchan lenehora, that were able to completely change darkness into light, that were able to take darkness and change them into light. In other words, the desire to procreate, only for God, 100% for God, not 99% for God. See, an incomplete tzaddik has the desire to procreate, 99% for God, but there is some little bit that he's doing it for himself. He's not aware of it. It's so little. It's so nullified.
If he's not aware of it, how could it be nullified? If it's 99%, but the 1% that we say he's not aware, then maybe it is 100% because he's not aware.
So the way he would know that if it's 100% or 9% is he doesn't hate physicality to the utmost. He can tolerate it to some extent. A complete tzaddik wouldn't be able, it disgusts him. He will puke. He will, just the thought about being physical for physical things. The incomplete tzaddik has a little bit of attraction to it. He's not aware, but he's not completely disgusted by physicality, and that's why he doesn't 100% love God. He doesn't have the desire, he doesn't have a lust for God that a complete tzaddik has. And how would you measure it? I don't know, that's not our problem, it's a problem for tzaddikim. Okay?
So when Yaakov Avinu had a desire for Rachel, does it mean he was a complete tzaddik in this concept? The incomplete tzaddik?
I don't want to go and start with name, but Yaakov Avinu, I think, was a complete tzaddik. Yeah. The desire for Rachel is, by the way, there's a specific Rashi on that. If you go up the Chumash, Rashi actually asks your question. And Rashi says, Yaakov came to Lavan and he said to him, give me my wife so I can have sons from her. And Rashi says, even an Amaretz, doesn't say these things. Give me my wife so I can have a relationship with her. You don't talk like this to your wife's father. It's not something that you would say. But he says Yaakov was such a tzaddik that for him, the only reason he was getting married is because God wants an offspring. He didn't see anything. We're ashamed of it. For us, it's a shame because a woman is to lust, physical lust over her. He didn't understand that the woman is to lust over her. He thought what a woman is, I'm doing God's commandment to procreate. He doesn't have those connotations that we have with women. And that's what Rashi says that he meant L'Shem Shamayim. If you open up Rashi on that parsha. An interesting thing. So again, the complete tzaddik completely transfers darkness into light. We are on the next page, page 45. V'ta'amim mariru lemitka, and he completely transforms bitter to sweet. Ad lo yutan hacha v'chulo. So it says only those people that were completely able to transform darkness to light can come to the yeshiva of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. You didn't, so you stay in your own yeshiva, in the lower yeshiva. There's only a few guys over there, Rashbi and some other guys. You can't go in. And we're talking about Rabbi Chia, someone who's many stories about him in the Gemara, that he was incomplete tzaddik. Okay. So let's just take an example from the worldly matters. The religious world looks at the internet as evil. You wouldn't give your son, who's 15, 14 years old, just an open connection to the internet. Or to the internet. There's other thing he can learn. It's a very good thing. But everybody knows also how much garbage there's on the internet. Yeah? And even if it was 99% good and only 1% bad, let's say that's what the internet was, which it's not, but let's say it is, so you're saying it's nullified. It's completely nullified, the bad and the good. You still wouldn't want your son to have that, to look at the internet. Why? Because those bad things are going to attract him. He might fall into this, right? He's not, in other words, he is not capable to deal with this evil that's within the internet in order to elevate it. You will tell him, stay away. But if there's a person who doesn't have any desire for these things, he is looking at the internet as something that what? It's a tool of God to make sure Jews learn Torah. That's the way he looks at everything physical. And there's no danger that ever he's going to look at it anywhere else. He doesn't even understand what you're talking about. The internet, that's what it's for. Let me give you another example to make it even more clear. See, an incomplete tzaddik would love, forget incomplete tzaddik. What's the difference between us and a tzaddik? We want to eat an apple. Right? That's what you want. We want to eat an apple. In order to eat an apple, we say bracha. Because God commanded, God told us, if you want to eat an apple, you need to say bracha before you eat an apple. How does a tzaddik work? Exactly the opposite. He's not hungry. He doesn't want to eat an apple. He wants to say a bracha. He wants to bring God's name down over here to this physical world. He wants to say bracha. In order to say bracha, he needs to eat an apple. The mentality of a complete tzaddik, we can't even fathom. Think about it in a relationship, husband and wife. He doesn't want to have a relationship with her. He wants to do God's will. It's completely foreign to our mind. We are living constantly within our animal soul. He is completely godly. He's got a godly soul. That's what alive by him. He doesn't have animal soul talking to the system. Only godly soul. Yes. No, you're good.
So again to Yaakov, they say that he loves Rachel more than Leah.
Mm-hmm.
He got kids, more sons from Rebbe. If it is all for that, he got Judah, he got Levi, he got...
Let's discuss this. Actually, we might have a class on it one day, but let's leave it there. Just as though, let's not put names on who's a tzaddik, complete tzaddik, incomplete tzaddik. Just know the system for right now. Okay? Questions about how it works, how it doesn't work. Yaakov married 2 sisters. You're not allowed to marry 2 sisters, and so on and so forth. We'll discuss some other time, some other class. Ve'od, and he continues. And you should furthermore know, Nikra'im bnei aliyah. Why are they called sons of elevation? Or over here calls it superior men. I don't like that. Sons of elevation. He says, Mipnei shegam avodotam, because their service, bebchinat ve'aseh tov, when they're talking about do good, in other words, when they put on tefillin, when they daven, when they do a mitzvah, bekiyum torah u'mitzvotea, in the fulfillment of Torah and the commandments, hu letzorech gavoha. It is for God's sakes. Let's explain what does it mean. See, an incomplete tzaddik and a complete tzaddik both lust for God. We lust for physical pleasure. They also lust. They have the same desire. They have the same lust that we do. But their lust is for God. Let's take an example. We were all married over here. So I can give this example. Most men, I don't know if all men, but most men don't like to go shopping with their wives. It's a painful experience, we all know. Now, if you would love your wife, you would go shopping with her. Now let's take this relationship with God. Most men love God because it feels good. Both the complete tzaddik and incomplete tzaddik lust after God. Why? It's the biggest pleasure. We get pleasures from women and wine, and they get pleasure from being close to God. See, the incomplete tzaddik and the complete tzaddik have a lust for God. They lust Him. They want Him. They want victory. And over here he says, you should know that the complete tzaddik, uletzorech gavoa, he does it. He does the commandment not because he wants to be close to God. He wants to do the commandment because God is going to be happy. Listen, it's completely different. The incomplete tzaddik does a mitzvah in some manner because it's good to be next to the source. It's good to be next to the thing I lust after. A complete tzaddik, that's not the reason why he does commandments. It has nothing to do with it. It makes him happy. In other words, how do you know if you love your wife or you lust after her? It's 2 actions. Do you want to give or do you want to take? If you want to give, you love her. If you want to take, you lust. And we can see this with all the relationship. Most men lust their wives. They don't want to give. They want to take. They want to take enjoyment out of him. She is a tool that gives you enjoyment. That's all she is. Loving your wife means, honey, I hate going shopping, but if it makes you happy, I'm going to go shopping with a smile on my face and I'm going to love it. Why? Because I want to give you something. You like your husband going shopping with you. Therefore, I'm going to give. Thank God I'm not a tzaddik. I don't have to do that. No, I'm just joking. I have to do that. I don't do it. But you have to do that. Always remember in relationship, if you love, you give. Loving is giving. Lusting is taking. So, also over here, think about most people. Most people, when they have a relationship with God, why do they have a relationship? It's to take. Even tzaddikim. Why do I have a relationship with God? It feels good to be next to God. It feels good to be next to my wife. It's the same thing. A complete tzaddik, that's not the reason why he does it. It makes him happy. God wants me to be close to him. That's why I'm doing it. Not because I lust. And he does lust. And he lusts more than the incomplete tzaddik. We're talking about levels that we can't even comprehend over here. He's only doing it for God. He loves God to such an extent. He says, I don't care about my pleasures. I only care about yours, God. I'm only doing it for you. This might mean לצורך גבוה.
That's the best example. Now I got it. Took me a while. This example of giving because I'd like to make God happy.
Yeah, that's a very good example.
That's a very good.
Married men can associate with it. בלבד, ולא כדי, he's not doing it כדי לדווקא בו יתברך, because he wants to go to heaven. He's not doing it because he wants to attach himself to God. לרוות צמאון נפשם, in order so their soul will be quenched their thirsts. כמו שכתוב, לקיצוויתן, הוויה כל צמא לכו למים. He's not learning Torah for his own sake. By the way, I'll give you another example that many people don't understand the example, and now it's going to become understood. Rabbi Akiva all the time rebuked his students. He had 24,000 students. And the rebuke was, if God would have told me to chop wood and not to learn Torah, I would have done it with the same happiness and enthusiasm as I'm learning Torah. And that's your problem. Because why did the students learn Torah? Because it made them feel closer to God. Why did he learn Torah? Because that's the commandment that God gave him. And even if it would have been to chop wood, he would have done it with the same excitement, because his goal was never to learn Torah. He never wanted to learn Torah. He wanted to be satisfy God, not to be close to God. To satisfy, to make God happy. And if it makes God happy to chop wood, I'll rather chop wood than learn Torah. The students look at him, you're crazy. Learning Torah, you grasp godliness. Chopping wood, you're doing nothing. He says, but I'm not here for me. I'm here for him. It's a completely different level than students. Now you see all the stories in the Gemara when Rabbi Akiva was rebuking the students. Why? Because he was a Ben Aliyah. What does Ben Aliyah now means? Ben Aliyah, he's thinking about the top one. He's not thinking about the bottom one. He's the son of elevation. In other words, my concern is his concern. What he wants, not what I want. It's not that I want to get closer to the God or closer to the source. וכמו שכתוב במקור אחר, and like it's written in another place, אלא כדפרשו בתיקונים, like it says in תיקונים, איזה הוא חסיד, it says, this is a definition of somebody who's a chassid, don't think about the chassidim of today, המתחסד עם קונו, somebody who does kindness to his creator. In other words, he doesn't care about his happiness, he cares about God's happiness. He's not doing things to get closer to God. He's doing things to make God happy. Let me give you an example so you'll understand again from before. If I tell you to go and force yourself to go, a guy that doesn't like shopping, force yourself to go with your wife and smile and act nicely, most people are going to rebel. It says, Rebbe, it's too much for me. I can't do it. I go crazy after 2 minutes. Leave me alone. Right? But me as a grandfather, I can sit with my granddaughter and play with her dolls, with the skirts, for 2 hours. On her level. And I'm into the game. Why? Because the granddaughter I love unconditionally. I'm thinking about her good, not about my good. With my wife, I don't love unconditionally. I'm willing to do something for you. How much you want? 15 minutes? 20 minutes of shopping? 2 hours? It's a bit too much for me. The granddaughter can be there 5 hours. As long as she wants to play with me, I'm there to play with her. Because I'm not thinking I want to give. I don't want to take. The relationship is about giving. Not about taking with the granddaughter. With the wife, it's a give and take. I'll give, I'll take also. If it makes me happy, it's even better. Im kono, im ken dile. This is, by the way, this is what we say. I'm not going to explain this now, because it's going to be explained much later on in Tanya. But we say, Yichud kutshabrichu v'shchinte. Probably heard, a lot of people say it before they do a mitzvah. They say to combine God and His dwelling down here. In other words, God wants me to do the mitzvah. That's why I'm doing the mitzvah. I'm doing the mitzvah for Him, not for me. Mitzvahs will not give, even though the guy is a tzaddik, he lasts after God. He really does. But he's doing the commandments because of God, not because he wants to get closer to God. וכמו שכתוב בריה מהמנה, לקיצוויתין in raya mehemna. See, before we give the example of a husband and a wife, it says, don't be the husband to God that only wants to get close to God because it gives him pleasure. But he's not thinking about what God needs. He's only thinking about his needs. Be the husband that think about what God wants, not about what you want. It happened to be that a tzaddik and God wants the same thing. But the reason why you do it is because God is happy, not because it makes you happy. That's why the complete tzaddik. That's the example of a husband and wife. Then he's going to give you, if it's hard for you that example, I'm going to give you a second example. It says in Raya Mehemna is part of the Zohar. He's talking about Moses, the faithful shepherd, Parashat Tetzeh. Kebra de'ishtadel batar abuye ve'ime. It is like a son who runs the business of his father and mother. He runs his father's and mother's business. He doesn't lust for them. See, the previous example was that he lusts after God. Over here, he doesn't lust, but it's my father's business. This is what God wants. This is my father's business. Derachin lo, at that moment the son will do the father's will, and he's thinking about his father's business. Yeter migarmei venafshe veroche. It's more important to his father's business than his wants and his soul and his needs. In other words, his father needs, his father's business, his father wants comes before mine. I'm a worker of my father. Umasar garmei lemitale, to such an extent that he's willing to die for his father's business. He's willing to give everything. למפרק לו, כמו שכתוב במחורר, so that his father will be happy. That's the second. This is a complete tzaddik. This is called the Ben Aliyah. This is the difference now you can see between an incomplete tzaddik and an incomplete tzaddik. Part of the reason why he wants to go close to God, not all of it, part of it is because it feels good. It plays a part. They both lust after God. You ask the incomplete tzaddik, how much do you care about God and how much do you care about your love? He's going to say, I care about God's will 99%. But inside of that, I also enjoy it. The complete tzaddik doesn't have any enjoyment. Because he's completely 100% doing it for God. And like Rabbi Akiva says, you could have told me to chop wood, I would have done it as happily. I wouldn't have done being as happy to chop wood as to learn Kabbalah. Kabbalah is much more satisfying than chopping wood. But for Rabbi Akiva, there was no difference. For an incomplete tzaddik, there's going to be a difference. He would rather, if you ask an incomplete tzaddik, what would you rather, chop wood or learn Kabbalah? He will say, of course, learn Kabbalah is much better than chopping wood. A complete tzaddik, he doesn't understand your question. God wants me, who cares about what I want? And even though this incomplete tzaddik is only one part out of 1,000 wants to, he has that one part. A complete tzaddik doesn't even have this one part out of 1,000. The difference between them.
You can enjoy it, but that's not why you do it. I mean, you can
Godliness. Godliness.
No, having sex with your wife.
No.
You do it because
A tzaddik cannot have.
So he suffers. Oh my God, I have.
No, he's not going to suffer. It's not a suffering. He doesn't have any physical pleasures. Unless he's going to do it on Shabbos, because Shabbos, God said one should have physical pleasures.
I don't know what sex on Shabbat.
That's why.
Do both.
That's right. That's why the halacha, and you see in the Gemara, it says to specifically have relationship only on Shabbat, because then it's guaranteed that you're doing it. So that's great. For everybody. That's right.
Hey, Rabbi, is it possible for an average Jew like us to have a moment or a glimpse into what it is to
Excellent question. There's a reason why we're learning it.
be... Okay.
There are moments, fleeting moments in our life that every Jew experiences. The difference is that the tzaddik lives this way 24/7. We have 3 times in a lifetime, maybe. Some people maybe a little bit more, but an instant here and an instant there. But we can smell it. And there's a reason why we're learning it, we'll see later on. Even though it's not for us, there's a reason why we're learning it. ושניהם עולים בקנה אחד, the two explanation of Bnei Aliyah are 2 sides of the same coin. Because what does a tzaddik do? A tzaddik, every object on the face of the earth, he looks at every object, and the only thing that he sees in that object is God. He doesn't see anything else. Yaakov looked at Rachel, and what did he see? A commandment, be fruitful and multiply, that God commanded me. That's it. He didn't see anything else. In other words, and like this, he looked at every object. I'll give you another example from Yaakov, just to make things clear. Yaakov, comparably, was richer than Elon Musk, or Bill Gates, or these guys. He was the richest man in the West. And we know that once he crossed the Ma'avar Yabuk, he crossed into the land of Israel, he says he went back. He went back when he had the whole fight with the angel of Esav. So he says he went back. Why did he go back? But he says, Shachach pachim ktanim. He left on the other side small little vessels. He said he left on the other side small little vessels. So the questions immediately ask, the guy has billions of dollars. If there's $500 bill on the ground, it's not worth his time to bend down and pick it up, because he makes $20,000 every second. It's not worth it. Now, Yaakov had 5 cents on the other side of the river. For that, he's endangering his life to go back. But you have to understand Yaakov's idea. God gave this into my possession, these 5 cents, these 5 vessels. It is my responsibility to elevate it to God. It's not how much they're worth. It's my responsibility. God gave it to me. If God gave it to me, what do I need to do? I need to elevate it for him. I need to make it holy for him. This is a Yaakov. He doesn't think about 5 cents, 5 pennies. He doesn't have the value of money like we have the value of money. See, like I told you before about the apple. He doesn't want to eat an apple, therefore he says a bracha. He needs to elevate the world, therefore he says the bracha. He needs to elevate everything that comes to him. He needs to make everything that comes in touch with him, he needs to elevate it to God. על ידי הבירורים שמבררים מנוגה, he wants to elevate all those things that are possible to elevate, like we said before, from the Klippas Noga. מעלים מים נוקבים. I'm not going to explain it now, but you can use your own mind, and you can see how it says. It says, he awakens. Remember, the Jewish people are the wife of God. God is the husband, we are the wife. and it says, Maim nukvim, pleasure, when a person has pleasure, down here, it causes pleasure. It says, Maim megadlim kol minei ta'anug. Water grow all kinds of pleasures. So when a person has pleasures, imagine that the wife, when she has pleasures, there's an elevation of the water, the feminine water. There's an elevation for the feminine water. Ve'na'asim yechudim elyonim. And then there's a getting together with the husband, with God. When the elevation of the feminine water becomes one with God. In other words, lehorid, and then what do you want? Do you want to bring down, a tzaddik wants to bring down godliness down here to earth. In other words, a tzaddik wants to have a relationship, the same thing as man and a woman, with God. He wants God to come down and permeate this world, to come down into this world. That's what he wants. Leorid maim duchrim, to bring down the masculine water. Shehem meimei chasadim, these are the waters of kindness. Shebechol mitzvah o mitzvah, that we find in every commandment. Miramach mitzvot aseh, from the 248 positive commandment. Shekulam מבחינת chasadim, that they're all kindness. Umain duchrin, and what does it mean to bring down the masculine water? דהיינו המשכת קדושת אלוקותו יתברך מלמעלה למטה. It means bringing down godliness from up to down. להתלבש בתחתונים, to get dressed over here. This is just by the way, before we do every mitzvah, what does a mitzvah do? A mitzvah unites godliness in the physical world. That's what mitzvahs do. Before we do every mitzvah, we say a blessing. What's the blessing do we say? We say, Baruch Ata Hashem. If you look at it in the Siddur, it will say, blessed are you, God. Nothing to do with it. Baruch and blessed are not the same thing. Baruch, comes from the word lehavrich et hagefen, which means the way you plant a vineyard is you take a stalk of the vineyard and you put it in the ground, and then it grows roots, and then it comes up again. So you can get a 2-mile vineyard up and down. It's only one plant. It's the same plant that you replanted hundreds of times. So the word Baruch means to take something from on top and bring it down. The same thing you have in Hebrew, lehavrich et hagamal, or the Lashon berech, to kneel the camel, to bring down the camel, to kneel him, Kneel, to make the camel kneel. So to kneel the camel, again, this is what the word Baruch is. So when we say Baruch Ata Hashem, what are we saying? God, come down. We're going to take it, just like we take godliness and we bring it down to the world. This is Baruch Ata Hashem. This is what a tzaddik does. The difference between a tzaddik and us, or a complete tzaddik and incomplete tzaddik, a complete tzaddik only does it for God. Even though he lusts for it. He's doing it because God wants it. Not because he has a desire to be close to God. Not because he wants to be close to get Gan Eden. Not because he's closer to God. He's doing it because God. I'm doing it for God. In other words, he cares about God more than he cares about himself. No, sorry. He only cares about God. He doesn't care about himself. I know it's strange, but that's the way it is with him. So even though he lusts for God more than anybody in the universe, when he does a mitzvah, it has nothing to do with lust. He's giving, he's not taking. Like I said. By the way, the idea of giving and taking with the wife, always, or with any relationship, friends, with any relationship, with sons and daughters, it's easy. It's easier because we only give, we don't take. Most of the time. Yeah, with children. But a relationship between everybody, always ask yourself this question. Am I giving or am I taking? If you're giving, if you're taking, it's only lust. If you're giving, that's real love. And so now that we are discovered what the two tzaddikim is, we're not going to discuss the two tzaddikim almost ever again in the Tanya. It's just for us to know. Next week, we're going to get introduced to the two Reshaim.